All right, so before we went on our mini break, okay, we were looking at 5 types of stories that engage audiences. Okay. We looked at the redemption story, we looked at the walkaway story. Okay. The next type of story that engages audiences is the one which says you are not the only one facing that particular situation or facing that particular challenge. Okay. It's the you are not alone story. Okay. Very often, okay, we see advertisers use this medium of storytelling as well, okay, where they will show a particular situation or a particular scenario, okay, and try and say that, okay, you're not the only one who's facing with this situation, there are others as well. And then they will pitch the product or the service that showcases how it has helped or it is helping others as well in that particular situation. Okay. Very often advertisers also use statistics and data to show this kind of story. Okay. They will say that 70% of the population experiences this. Okay. What are they trying to do by recommending this or by showcasing that statistics? Is that it's trying to showcase to you as the individual, as the audience, as the user of that product or service, that you are not the only one who's facing that particular situation. Okay. The next kind of story that engages audiences is the story that says you can do it as well. Okay. It shows a situation where an individual or protagonist or the hero of the story is faced with a particular challenge. He or she is not able to do it. Then they show how they do it as well, and showcase that it is something that you can also do it as an individual, as a common user. Okay. The last kind of story is the story that talks about overcoming impossible odds. Okay. This is the kind of story that you very often see in movies. Right? The hero of the story is put up against a situation which seems impossible to overcome. Right? Very often you will see this in your masala Bollywood movies, right? A hero fighting 100 individuals coming his or her way and still winning in that situation, overcoming impossible odds, right? That may be an exaggeration, okay? But there are a lot of other stories where you see people having faced situations, scenarios that may seem impossible to overcome, but then they do that. Okay? Uh, for example, okay, the story of the movie Padman. Okay? That's the story of an individual who was faced with an impossible situation, okay? But he overcomes that and he's become popular and successful today. Right? Real life stories where people have overcome impossible odds. So these are 5 types of stories that engage audiences. And as Sadiq Love says, okay, facts and figures inform, stories transform. Okay. It is necessary to use facts and figures in your stories to inform the audiences, but if you wish to bring across a transformation, okay, you need to tell engaging stories. Okay. Now, we've looked at what are the 3 mistakes that we need to avoid. Okay. We've looked at what's the formula that we need to use. We looked at what are the type of stories we need to narrate. But where do we get these stories from? Right? What are the great sources of narrating stories? Today I bring to you 11 powerful sources of great stories. Okay? The first one is your personal experience. A lot of engaging storytellers use their personal experiences, things that they would have seen, that they would have heard, that they have experienced in their life to create engaging stories. This is one of the most powerful source that you have for storytelling, because no one can narrate a story better than you about your experience. And if you have to tell a story that needs to seem authentic to an individual, there is no better way than narrating your own personal experience. The second engaging source for your stories is your vendors, clients, customers. All of them have a story, have their own personal experiences that they would like to share. Now, when you're trying to market a product or a service, this becomes more relevant than sharing your personal experience, sharing experiences that the clients would have had, that the customers would have had, or the vendors would have had with your product or service. Okay, helps seal in the authenticity of the product or the service much better with the audience than anybody else can do. Okay, and that's why your vendors, clients, customers are also a very powerful source of narrating great stories. The third is your sales, operations, or customer service. The services that you offer, the sales that you would have done, the customer services that you have offered to your customers can also be a great source of narrating your stories. It can help you identify what challenges individuals would have faced, how have they overcome that. All of that can come from those divisions as well. The next is books, magazines, and newspapers. A lot of stories get printed in these mediums every day, day in, day out. Okay. If you look at different books, you have authors who would have written stories of experiences that either they would have had, or their vendors, clients, customers would have had, or some teams would have had, or an experience that a very different individual would have had, something that we would have never known about had we not read a particular book. Magazines have a lot of stories that get published each day. They can form a great source of narrating your stories. And so do newspapers, right? The other important and a very relevant and yet easily accessible source of stories is TED Talks, your podcasts, your blogs, YouTube. All these channels have a lot of amazing storytellers narrate different stories, depending on, or rather irrespective of what kind of story you are looking for. I can assure you that you will find a speaker or a storyteller narrating a story, narrating their experiences on these platforms. We can easily listen to those and utilize those when we want to narrate our stories, when we want to narrate stories or create stories in marketing and selling our products. Right? The next is social media platforms. Okay? You have these social media platforms available today, and I need not name them. You all know about them, and you probably know more about them than I do. Okay? So you have the great influencers on each of these platforms. You have great individuals on each of these platforms. You have common individuals on these platforms. You have all kinds of people on these platforms who are sharing their experiences, who are narrating some or the other stories. Are they doing a great job at it or not is not something that I can be sure of, but there are stories which are available on these platforms, stories that you can use and create a crisp, short version of the stories while narrating the stories that you want to narrate. The next is speakers and celebrities. You have speakers and celebrities on social media platforms. You have them sharing, narrating stories on YouTube. You can see those on televisions. You can see them narrate stories on TED Talks. You can see them at various places on their websites, on their personal web portals, where they would have shared their stories, where they would be narrating stories. It's also very interesting, and it's also a very good learning experience looking at these speakers narrate stories in their own sessions as well. Okay. The next great source of stories comes from industry trends. Like we talked about earlier, facts and figures inform our audiences. They help us create that mindset in the audience that what we are narrating is something which is relevant, and it is something which is current, and not something that we are narrating from 1,000 years ago, right? Okay. TV shows and movies, we all know about these. We all keep talking about those. We talk about those. Yeah. You have your OTT platforms these days, right, where you have a lot of great shows coming up. They narrate stories. Some of them are real life incidents. Again, something which can inspire you to narrate a particular story as well. Yeah. You have history that gives you a lot of stories about a lot of great individuals or a lot of difficult situations that people would have faced and would have overcome. Okay. These can once again become a great source of narrating engaging stories. The last one is religion and mythology. Okay. Religion, all religions and mythologies have stories built into them which are trying to narrate a particular moral or a particular lesson to us. This also can be used as a source from which you can create a story that you want to use to narrate for your product or your service. These are 11 great sources from where you can narrate engaging stories. You can either narrate the stories as is, or you can create stories for your benefit as well. When you're narrating stories, when you're creating stories, remember Dave Lieber's formula. Remember that V-shaped formula. Remember to keep your stories short and crisp. Right? Any questions that you would have at this moment?
Students, you are free to actively participate in this webinar. Since now, sir have given the roadmap to this, storytelling. So yeah, take it as a challenge, and please, if any question, then do ask. Okay, how to hide our mistakes, sir?
All right. Okay. If you have ever made a mistake while narrating a story, okay, learn from it. Okay. That's the first recommendation that I would have. Okay. Learn from your mistakes. Don't repeat them again. Okay. Now, the other key way in which you can avoid making mistakes while narrating stories is practice and rehearse. Okay. You have individuals around you whom you can use as for a lack of better word, as guinea pigs for your trials. Okay. Use them, try it out. If you don't have anyone around, you always have a mirror in, and use that mirror, get in front of the mirror and narrate that story and see if it is engaging. Okay. And even after all that, even if you do make a mistake, okay, don't worry, it is not the end of the world. Okay. The moment you are able to identify your mistake, just do a course correction and remember the other tips. Okay. Right. What if we have practiced, but seeing audience, we get nervous? Okay. So if you want to overcome nervousness, okay, there are two secrets that I can share with you to overcome nervousness. Okay. First is be confident with the content that you are going to present, the story that you're going to narrate. Okay. Make sure you have enough detail about it with you, so that if you are posed a question, you are able to answer it. More often than not, nervousness comes out of the worry that we may not be able to answer the question, or we may not be able to do a good job. Okay. Practice, 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 and I will assure you that you can do a great job. Okay. So that's secret number one. Have enough information, practice well. Okay. The secret number two, okay, is Okay, the second secret is try delivering whatever message or story that you are going to deliver, okay, in a closed room, but imagine the audience being there. Do it in a closed room. If there is someone, uh, who you think is going to make you nervous, imagine that individual being there, and practice. Okay? You will overcome your nervousness. All right. What if we don't have the knowledge about the question which is being asked? How to cover it? You don't necessarily need to uh, cover the fact that you don't have knowledge about the question. Okay. Now, if the question is extremely basic, then yes, you are expected to have that basic knowledge, okay, about that particular topic that you are going to narrate or the story that you're going to tell. But if it is something which is too detailed, okay, it's all right to go back and tell the other individual that you don't know the answer to that question, but you will find the answer to that question and give it to them. Okay. Remember, you are a human, you are not Google. You don't need to have answers for everything and every given situation. Okay. But it is important that you go back to them with the answers to that question at a later point of time. Okay. I hope that helps. Any other questions?
So I'm sure we have one storyteller in the making.
Excellent. I'll be
Yeah.
more than happy to have that. All right. I know we've exceeded time, so if we don't have any other questions, I thank each and every one of you for being here today and participating and sharing your thoughts with me. Okay. If you have any further questions that come up after the session, here's the contact information. You can choose any medium to get in touch with me, to get in touch with us, and share your questions, ask your questions.
Students, I would still say that, sir is here. So if you have any questions, then this is the right time. Do not lose on the chances, because I'm sure that, there are so many online platforms that, you wish to grow in. Like sir mentioned, that blogs are there, podcast is there, and digital marketing definitely is growing. So, we have the experienced person, right person to deliver the right answers to our questions. So please don't fumble. I'm sure that, you might be feeling a bit conscious about asking, but please, you have the chat open, to ask.
Yes, please don't worry about uh, whether your question is right or wrong or relevant or irrelevant. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. It's only when you ask questions and get your doubts clarified that you can get to learn more, better, and deeper.
In fact, sir, you would also agree that, if somebody is having that doubt or consciousness, then this is the from where
Absolutely,
they can start.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like you rightly said, Divya, it is about making sure that you get those questions answered, because even though if you're nervous or conscious, that's the only way to learn more and develop yourselves. Right? And
Exactly.
I don't guarantee that I have answers to all the questions, because remember, I'm also human. I'm not Google. But if I don't have the answer to it, I assure you, you will get the answer to that question before the day ends today.
So we have two more questions in the chat box.
Actually, I see three more questions. Okay.
Okay, yeah, three
All
more.
right. The first one. Okay. How to keep oneself motivated in tough times. Um, okay. Now, I'm going to deviate a little away from the topic of storytelling, because this question slightly deviating from the storytelling topic in itself. Okay. Um, Remember, everyone, okay, And when I say everyone, by that I mean every single individual on this planet, okay, has gone through bad times and tough times. These are different phases of life, okay, that one will have to go through. Okay, remember there's this one saying, I don't know who said it, okay, but someone once said that even your heart rate or pulse rate goes up and down. Okay? A flat line even there means that you're dead. And so is the case with life as well. To keep you will go through tough times. Now, how to keep yourself motivated is to remember that good times didn't last, tough times won't last as well. You will have good times come to you. So keep putting in the efforts. Okay? Create a goal for yourself. Okay? Identify what is it that you want to do in your life. Okay? And I'm not just talking about career. Okay? For all your aspects of your life, set your goals. Okay? Set your career goals, set your financial goals, set your personal goals, set your relationship goals. Okay? Create goals for each and every area of your life and start working towards those goals. Start taking steps towards those goals. You may not see results immediately, especially if you're going through a tough time. You may not see immediate results, okay? But at the same time, make sure that you don't give up on it. Keep taking those steps and you will achieve your goal. If you're doubtful whether your steps that you're taking are in the right direction or not, seek help of an expert. There are experts for every area of life. And there are career experts. You have career coaches. Okay? You have individuals there are life coaches who will help you set your personal goals and your life goals. There are relationship coaches and experts who can help you with that. There are financial experts who can help you with your financial goals. Seek help of the experts to make sure that your steps are in the right direction. And I assure you, you will get to your goals. Okay? And that's the only way to keep yourself motivated, to keep yourself going. Okay? Things may seem tough, things may seem impossible, but remember, Rome was not built in a day. It takes those small steps to get to your goals. So keep taking those small steps, and it is my guarantee to you that you will get to your goals. Okay. Right? I'm going to move on to the next question, which is how to immerse the audience in a story. Okay. The key to immersing audiences in your story is to narrate stories that are relevant to them, that they feel connected to or connected with. Okay. If you are going to, all right, so you guys are all management students. Okay. If I start narrating a story about, let's say, how to cook a meal, okay, I can assure you I will lose the attention of at least 50% of the audiences that we have. Okay. Sorry, why? Because the story is not really relevant to what you are looking for. It is not relevant to the information that you are seeking. It is not relevant to the challenges that you are facing. Okay? So that's the first thing to do, is choose your topic wisely, choose the story which is relevant to your audience. Okay? Now, it needs to be relevant to the target audience that you have identified for your product or your service. The moment you've done that, use Dave Lieber's V-shaped storytelling formula. Create one of the 5 types of stories from one of the 11 sources that I have shared with you. Okay? And you will notice that your audiences are automatically engaged and are listening to the story that you're sharing. Remember, don't commit those 3 mistakes that we shared. Okay? And that's how you can keep the audience immersed in your stories. All right, I'm going to the next question. I'm into sales, however, going through a rough, bad patch, how to deal with the situation. Right. Like I said before, yes, set goals for yourselves, see what's the goal that you want to achieve. Yeah. Identify what are the factors that are causing you to go through that bad patch. Is it the current scenario? Okay. Is it the product or the service that you're not able to sell? Is it the customer? Are you not identifying the right customers? Okay. Is it that you need to sharpen your skills as a sales professional? Identify what is it that's causing you to go through that bad patch, okay? And start working on overcoming that particular challenge, that particular situation. Right? Okay. How to motivate my team member if we are from a different team and working on the same project? Good question, Aparna. Okay. Now, if you want to motivate team members who are from a different team, okay, but working on the same project, one of the first things that you need to do with that team member is work with them and identify if you guys are working towards the same goals. Okay. Now, understand this: you guys are on a team, okay, or rather on the same project. Okay. What's the end goal of the project? Is the other team member trying to achieve the same goal of the project, or is he or she trying to achieve a different goal? Because if the goals are different, then the individual is not going to be interested in the goal that you are trying to achieve for that particular project. The goals have to be same for all the members. What every member on the team wants to be achieved needs to be consistent. Okay. While individuals will have different functions to perform, okay, the end goal that everyone's trying to get to needs to be the same. If it's the same goal, then they are going to be motivated to achieve that goal. If they are not motivated to achieve that goal, identify why is it that they are not motivated. There is a reason behind why they are not motivated. Okay. Now, there are plenty of times that there are reasons that you can solve, or problems that you can solve towards individual motivation. There are plenty of times when you may have to approach other experts and seek their intervention to get someone else motivated. And because motivation comes from within, it is something which is intrinsic in nature, and it is not something that you can constantly keep doing for somebody else. Yeah. So, yeah, identify what's causing them not to be motivated and work towards that. Okay. All right. So there is a question from Ankita. In everyone loses all hopes and no one can motivate, and that time no one thing that no one. Okay. Sorry. There's a time when he loses all hope and no one can motivate him or her, and that time, one thing that will motivate him or her. Will a proper story technique help? All right. Now, Ankita, if you say that there is a time when he loses all hope and no one can motivate him or her, then it's a slightly bigger problem than just using a storytelling technique. And this is where I recommend that they talk to an expert. Yeah. If someone has lost all his or her hope, okay, one needs to identify why that has happened. One needs to try and find out, okay, what is it that the individual really wants to do? What is it that he or she wants to achieve in their lives? If they say that there's nothing that they want to achieve, then we need to identify why is it that they don't wish to achieve anything. there will be a reason about it. Okay? What if we are going through it again? We need to talk to an expert life coach or psychologist, expert psychologist, who can help us identify what is it that we are going through, why is it that we are going through that situation or scenario, and then probably work with us to identify what to do to overcome that particular situation. Okay. Not knowing more details of this is all that I can tell you at the moment, because yeah, if you talk about losing all hope, then yes, you definitely need an expert to get in. And this is a time where you don't really need to use a storytelling technique as much, but you need to let that particular individual talk more and share why he or she is in that situation, and then work at finding out how to get that individual out of that particular mindset. Okay. This is more of a mindset change that will not just happen by telling stories. Okay. It needs a lot more work than that. Okay. I hope that helps answer the question that you had.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing all the questions. And I know
My
it
pleasure.
exceeded the time, but still, sir.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, so that if you don't know the answer, so being a storyteller, how can we sort it? Uh, right. If you don't know the answer as a storyteller, we need to first ask the right questions to understand what kind of stories we need to tell. Right. That's why I said we first need to know what kind of stories to tell. If we want to engage our audiences, we need to understand what's the mindset of the audience, what's the thought process of that audience before we can start narrating that story to them. Yeah. Like I said, if I start talking about cooking or swimming or any other sport, yeah, I'm going to lose a lot of the audience that I have here because it is not relevant. To make it relevant, you need to identify and understand your customers, your audiences first. And that's where I said we need to ask questions first to try and understand the mindset of the audience. Sorry, Divya, I interrupted you because I saw that question pop in, so I had to answer it.
No, no, not at all. So I was going to say that yeah, I'm surely looking forward to see Ankita in many more sessions, because yeah, at least she's coming forward and asking questions, and I'm sure that you have cleared most of her doubts. So thank you so much for addressing all the questions, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I once again thank each one of you for being here, for listening to me, to what I had to share, and sharing your thoughts with me and your questions with me. And I wish you all the very best in all that you do this year and in the future. Thank you.
I would thank the audience as well, all the participants. Thank you so much for joining and staying with us, even because of the technical glitch. So, yeah, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the session and a lot to learn. You are taking, some tips and tricks and the roadmap to storytelling techniques.